Hey guys, what's going on? It's Clever Techie, and in this video we're going to create an HTML registration form. And then we're going to style it with CSS, so it's going to look awesome like this. And we're going to create two sections, basic info and your profile. So it's going to have name, email, password, age option, biography, drop-down selection box with grouped selection options, and finally the checkboxes for the interests, as well as this big green sign up button. And we're gonna just be using HTML and CSS for this project. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and get started. New project, HTML, sign up form, and then gonna close all the other files here, and I'm just gonna create a basic HTML template, and I'm gonna name it sign up form. And then I'm also gonna create a basic HTML form, action blank, what I needed. And so we're gonna have the three text fields, name, email, and password. So text, name, value blank, email, name, email, value blank, and this one is going to be password with the name password, value blank. And the other two options are going to be the radio buttons for the age option. So we're going to name this one age, and the value for the first one is going to be under 18 if the user is under 18. And the second radio button name is also going to be age, and this one's going to be over 18. Okay, so those are our text fields. Now let's go ahead and add the labels for each and every one of those fields. So label, and this one is not going to be using any class, so this is label for name, and our text is name. And then create another label right underneath here, and we're not using any class. It's the label for email. So let's just separate these just so we can clearly see everything. Okay, label for password, and then we're gonna create the label for the age options. That one's just gonna have the word age. And then we'll also need the label for each individual radio option. So we're gonna create the label here, and for this label we're gonna be using a class called light, just to make the text font a little bit lighter so it stands out a little bit. So just put the class light, and for is gonna be under 18. And the second label down here as well, it's also going to be using light, and this one is for over 18. Oh, and of course don't forget about the text. This one is under 18, and this one is for over 18. Okay, so just to make things neatly organized and visually more appealing, we're going to be using a HTML tag called field set and legend. So a field set, it just groups all the HTML elements inside of the field set tag. And so we want to wrap all of our fields inside of this field set tag. And let me show you what we have so far here. We open this up in the browser, so this is what it looks like so far. So the field set created this border around all of our input fields, and now we're going to create legend, which is going to be the caption of this field set. Okay, so let me show you what I mean here. So legend is the HTML element tag, and then we want to have span inside of it with a class that we're going to name section. And this is going to be our one, so it's going to be our first section, and we're going to name it your basic info. and then we're going to close the legend tag here. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like. Refresh the page. So you can see that the legend tag has added this one with your basic info up here. And when we add the CSS style, this is what it's going to be looking like. Okay, so let's keep going here. And so the next thing we want to create is a second section. So we want to create another field set. And this field set is also going to have its own legend caption. So let's go ahead and create it right away. Legend span tag class is also going to be section. And this one is going to have the number 2 since it's the section 2. And your profile. So this is just the second section with the your profile information. And this is what it looks like so far. So the profile is going to have bio, and it's going to have the job role as well as the interests. So let's go ahead and create those. So the first one is the bio, and this one is going to be text area, because we want our user to have space for describing whatever they want to put about themselves. And this is just the name bio. And let's go ahead and also add the label for our bio right away. It's not going to be using any class. Label for bio and bio text. Okay, so we're done with that. And next we're going to create the select box. So it's going to be this part here, which is the job role section. So let's go ahead and create the label for it right away. Label for job and job role. Close the label tag. And then we want to create the select tag, because this is going to be our selection drop-down box. Now, what's really cool about options is that we can actually create the opt group tag, and then it's going to group our options by headers, as you can see here. So it's going to have web, mobile, and business, and for that we're going to use the opt group tag. Okay, so the first opt group tag is going to be label web, and here's how we create the label for it, just like that. And now let's go ahead and create all the option along with the values. So here you can put whatever you want. I'm just gonna put whatever I have here. Front end developer, PHP developer, and Python developer. And then I have 3 more. So Rails developer, web designer, and WordPress developer. So that's our first option group. Now let's go ahead and create a second option group here. And this one is going to have label mobile, and it's going to have 3 options. So Android developer, iOS developer, and mobile designer. That's the second option group, and finally third option group, the last one. Label business, and it's also going to have 3 options. Business owner, and of course feel free to play around with this and add as many options as you like. YouTube creator. Okay, we're done with our option selection. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like. So we have job role, and you can see our grouped options: web, mobile, and business, and all the options are nicely grouped. So far it's all just HTML, so don't worry about what it looks like so far. We're gonna add the CSS later and make it look awesome. But for now, this is just the HTML, so we want to keep going here. So the final section is gonna be interests, and so I want to create the new label down here and just say interests. And this is going to be our checkboxes. So I'm going to create 3 input field types, and they're all going to be checkbox. And checkbox, interest, design, and so name is all, the name is going to be user interest for all of them. And so this is really basic HTML. CSS part is going to be more interesting than this. Interest, business. For now, we'll just type in a bunch of text. Okay, so those are the checkboxes, and finally, let's go ahead and add the label for every individual checkbox. So just like we did for our input fields, but here we're going to be using class light to make the text stand out a little bit. So that one's going to be development, and then the label for the design class is also going to be light, and for design. All right, and the final label light for business. All right, let's go ahead and see what it looks like. So we got interest, development, design, and business. So that's all good. And finally, the button, which is the last thing. Button type, submit, sign up. Alrighty, so that's our HTML registration form, and that's what the raw HTML looks like so far. I hope I didn't bore you guys too much with all this HTML, but now we're gonna get to the juicy part and start creating all the CSS styling to make our form look awesome just like this. Alright, let's go ahead and create the CSS file. I'm just gonna name it style.css. Alright, so the first thing I want to do here is use something called box sizing and set the property to border box. So this is just going to remove all the unnecessary padding from our form whenever we use the padding, margin, and border syntax. So it's just gonna make things cleaner and easier for us. Also, something that I forgot here is we're going to be importing one of the Google fonts, and the font that we're going to be using is called Nunito. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go ahead and include the style here right away. Link rel style sheet and href style.css. So we're just including that style we just created. And then also link href, and I'm gonna type this long URL here for importing the Google font. And this family equals Nunito, 400, 300, rel equals style sheet, type text CSS. Okay, so now we're importing that awesome looking font. And let's go ahead and go back to CSS. So let's go ahead and start with the body tag and apply that font that we just imported. Nunito sans serif And let's specify the color as well. 384047. Okay, now let's go ahead and start styling our form. So let's say max width is 300 pixels. Let's apply the margin, 10px auto, and this is gonna center our form. Let's add some padding to have some room for our form to breathe. Then the background, let's set it to F4, F7, F8, and that's just gonna be gray background. And we're also gonna make the border radius round by setting it to 8 pixels. Misspelled margin. Let's go ahead and see what it looks so far, and boom, it already looks so much better. So if you guys are using Chrome, you can go ahead and press Ctrl-Shift-I, and then it'll give you these web developer tools. You can click on this inspect method, and then you can inspect whatever element you want. You can click on the form, and then on the right hand side you're gonna see all the CSS that we just set, so you can go ahead and play around with it and uncheck these boxes to see exactly what each of the CSS property does. So here's the background color, here's the border radius, margin, which centers our form, and everything else. So whenever we add CSS and you don't understand something, you can always go ahead and open up these tools and check out the CSS elements and play around with them by unchecking the boxes. So I'm just gonna leave this open here because it doesn't take too much space, so that I can explain those CSS elements a little bit better. Alright, let's go ahead and go back to CSS. So let's go ahead and let's see, do we create, oh, I forgot to create the h1 tag. So just underneath the form tag, we want to add the header, which is going to have sign up or whatever words you want. You can have registration form, sign up form, or whatever here. So it's going to be our main text for the title. And let's go ahead and style our h1 tag here, margin 30px0, and we're also going to align it with text align center, just like that. And you can see that our custom Nunito font from Google has been imported as well, and it has been applied to all the text, so it's starting to look a little bit better. Now we're going to style our input fields, and here we're going to use CSS grouping, and here's what I mean. So input, and then we're going to use square brackets to specify what type of input it is. So this one is going to be text for our name field, and then we can just use comma and set another input, which is email, and another one that we have is password. So that's how we can combine the HTML tags, and we're also going to apply it to text area and select. So all of the following CSS is going to be applied to all of these HTML selectors. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and set the background. And here I'm going to be using RGBA. Specify the color. Set the border to none. Set the font size to 16 pixels. Height, auto. Let's set the margin to 0. Outline 0. Set the padding to 15 pixels. Set the width to 100%. And set the background color. Number E8 EEF. Very specific color. And the color for the font as well. 8A978 A0. And then box shadow effect. So this is all going to be applied to our index input fields and bio and the select box. So we're going to have a border of 1px and set the color to gray. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, margin bottom, set it to 30 pixels. Okay, so let's see, I made a mistake somewhere. Okay, misspelled the margin. I keep misspelling margin. And okay. Alright, so we just set a bunch of CSS properties, so let's go ahead and see what we got so far. Alright, so this is what we have, and again, if you click on the inspector and click on one of the input elements, you can go ahead and wait, something went wrong here. Let me see. Oh, okay, so this should be, I think, yeah, I missed another E here, so that's why it looks all weird. Okay, this is how it actually should look like. Now we can see our input fields. So you can go ahead and play around with these as well. You can uncheck the background color, width, and border. You can see how removing the border makes it look nicer. And so the rest of the elements like margin. So go ahead and play around with these checkboxes just to see what each property does if you don't understand what they do. But let's go ahead and keep going here. So the next one I want to set is whenever we focus on a specific field, we want to highlight that checkbox with this blue round border around it. So let's go ahead and add that next with input focus, and we also want to apply that to text area focus, and we're going to use a box shadow property. Set it to 00px RGBA 81 203 238 1. And we're also going to apply the border 1px solid GBA 81 203. So this is just setting a bunch of CSS properties, not too complicated. So now that we set that, so you can see that it's highlighting our input fields along with the text area as well. Alright, let's see what we got next here. Okay, so next we got the input radio and checkbox, and here we're just going to be setting the margin just to get the spacing again, just to have more breathing room for our form. So radio and checkbox, and we want to set the margin to 0, 4px, 8px, 0. Alright, let's keep moving here. So select is the next one, which is the select drop-down menu box. I want to set the padding to 6, height 32. Oops. And border radius 2px. Let's also go ahead and apply CSS to field set, margin bottom 30px, and border none. Alright, let's see what it looks like. Okay, looks like it's starting to look better and better here. Okay, we got that. So let's keep moving. Let's apply CSS to legend next. Play block. And can also apply margin bottom 8 pixels. So that's going to be the legend to add more spacing to it. And then the next one is the label light. So that's the class that we set earlier for some of our labels, and here we're just gonna make the text a little bit lighter and display it inline. The next thing is gonna be the section, which is going to be this part here. So we're basically creating a styling of this green round number next. Okay, so and this is all the CSS that comes along with it. There's a lot of CSS to make the round green circle like that. So this is the color for it, F80, and then the actual text color, height 30px, width 30px, display inline block, font size. So this is for the green round box, circle I mean, and the actual text as well. Margin 4px, line height 30px. Want to align text to center. Want to add some text shadow. Like that. And then let's also set border radius to 100%. Okay, let's see what we got so far. That's not our form, this is it. Okay, so you can see that we have added this round circle, and now we can see our sections more clearly, and it's starting to look really nice. Again, we can uncheck all these settings here and see what it's gonna look like. So you can play around with those once again, but let's keep moving. And finally, we're gonna add the CSS for our button to create this big, fat green button at the bottom of the form. Button at the bottom. Button at the bottom. Button at the bottom. Little tongue twister there. Button at the bottom. Button at the bottom. Okay. Set the color. Background color of the button at the bottom. Set the font size to a large font. Align the text to center. Set the style of font to normal. Set the border radius to 5px to make it round. Set the width to 100% to make it really wide. And then border solid number 3 AC 162. Also want to set the border width 1px 3px. Box shadow 0 negative 1px 0 RGBA. And set. And then margin bottom, which is the last property. Bottom 10px. Okay, so far our form looks really nice, but it's a little bit too squished. So we want to make it a little bit wider. And for that we're going to use the media screen selector inside of the CSS. So we can add it right at the bottom of all of our CSS down here. And this is what's also going to make our form responsive as well. So I want to say media screen, and we want to collapse it at 480 pixels, which is going to be at the breaking point. And then we're going to set the form maxed width to 480 pixels. And that's it. Let's see what it looks like. And now our form looks awesome. So if I keep dragging the form here, you can see at the top right corner, when it hits 480, right at that point, it's going to collapse, making the form responsive. So if somebody's viewing it on a mobile device, it's going to show up really nicely. But we've also forgot to add the break tags in the HTML, so let's go ahead and add those. Last thing to do, so under the label age, so after the label here, we just want to add the break, and actually it's just that one. And then same thing for the interests. After the label, you want to add a break here, and after design. And so we still need another break here, but instead of adding the break, we can actually apply CSS to our labels, and then that way we're not gonna have to add another breaking tag. So let's go ahead and create a CSS here for the label, and we're just gonna say display block and apply margin bottom 8 pixels. So that's what's gonna make the space here, and as you can see, our form now looks awesome. And we are done. And that's how you create a good looking HTML form with CSS. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Clever Techie out.